Today is May 19. Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation. My name is Vitaly Zubok, and now we will be talking for a long time on an interesting topic, maybe not in quite an understandable manner, but we will talk about cyber threats, methods of solutions to the cyber threats, and discussion around the methods and solutions around those threats. So our guests today are Volodymyr Kondrashov, spokesperson of the State Service for Special Communications, Serhiy Prokopenko, a representative of NSDC, and he represents also an organization with a difficult title. We also have Oleksandr Fedienko, head of the subcommittee on digital and smart infrastructure, electronic communication, cyber security of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Vitaly Zubok, Doctor of Technical Sciences, Mykola Khudyntsev, International University of Cybersecurity NGO, member of the board of UIA Mykola Khudyntsev, and Ivan Pukhov, president of Adamant LLC, and Roman Sochko, representative of the National Police of Ukraine. So there is an initiative to solve some problem, and the carrier of this initiative is Mr. Oleksandr. So, Mr. Oleksandr, please take the microphone and tell us what is the problem that we're trying to solve and in what way we're trying to do it. Good afternoon, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. So, initiator of this story, it's not me, but I will start to load your spectators with the new information as a people's deputy, and people's deputy is a person who has the representative mandate of the society to represent their interests in the parliament. This is why opening an Ukrinform page online at 1348, I see the news that there was a fraud network detected in Ukraine. At least 15 million hryvnias were stolen from the payment cards of more than 10,000 Ukrainians. So what is it about? It's about our Ukrainians using the digital services and having very low level of digital skills, digital awareness. Well, the things are just like that. Not everybody was taught in school to deal with that. It's only now that there are modern mechanisms are being implemented aimed at protection of population against cyber fraud. So when this global problem emerged, National Center for Operational Management of Telecommunication Networks issued a resolution number 67/850 dated year 23, where they specify that according to the legislation, there is the system implemented for filtration of domain names to counter phishing attacks. So, National Service of Domains. This service is not. This title is not present in the legislation, and this service is not yet built by the government. So within 30 days there should be a registration of phishing domains on the system, and further filter the phishing domains at recursive DNS servers. So we're seeing more terms here: DNS servers, phishing domain registration of systems. So that resolution was issued to the operators because the level of threat posed for the citizens of Ukraine in terms of stealing their money and personal data and other metadata which are not vulnerable to those citizens, it reached a level when the government, having understood that some digital services should be suspended, or there should be a mechanism implemented for filtration of the provider networks or carrier networks. It's not about blocking but filtration. Again, I want to emphasize this, of such, so filtration of phishing domains. So right away after this resolution emerged, I submitted the letter on the 8th of February to Mr. Shigol and Mr. Titarenko from National Technical Department where I stated that this resolution is not in compliance with the law in effect because there are no such terms in the legislation as phishing or phishing domain or national domain resource and so on and so forth. So it's just the preamble to to load our spectators. Well, so could you put it in human words what it is, the things that you're talking about? I think that everybody who is watching us now, I had a meeting with people in Borispol, about 300 people. They were facing the fraudulent actions who used the fact of non-awareness of the society. So phishing is when you're being sent an email with the link to a website which is a counterfeit website, and then your money is being stolen through that link. Well, it can be done through SMS. Well, phishing, well, we know what's phishing is when you fish for a fish. So these perpetrators, they juxtapose the websites. So, for example, a citizen may receive a message a text message that your bank card is being compromised. You please proceed to the link and fill some data. Many people just don't pay attention to this in terms of their digital awareness, digital skills. Many people just follow those links, they click on them, they voluntarily enter their personal data, and what happens next? The money disappears from their payment cards. So, and phishing is not only about banks, it's also about stealing personal data. When people, for example, receive the phishing emails, they are being stolen the accounts from their mobile phones and so on and so forth. Everything that can be stolen in the cyberspace can be stolen using different tools of phishing, different tools and mechanisms. So then there was a meeting on the basis of the National Coordination Center for Cybersecurity, where I reported that there is a resolution, but the resolution is not a law. The resolution may be subject to changes and it may be amended. It may be amended in favor of a different government institution. But again, I urge everybody to amend the legislation in force, and the amendment of legislation thus is being reflected in my draft law, where I added the terms what is phishing website, the supplier of digital services, and something that calls for some critics is developed based on the proposition of the National Bank of Ukraine as to the countering phishing and protecting the rights of the suppliers of digital services, because any further resolutions that may emerge outside the existing legal field, they have indicators of blocking, because now we're talking about the restriction of access thanks to the digital networks of the operators to the website. So again, we're not talking about blocking, because users who follow the phishing links, they have warning pages in the browser that this website is compromised, and then they choose whether to proceed to the website and add their personal details or not to do so. So there is no mechanism when people are being limited in their rights. I understand the concerns of the public. I currently work for the public. I listen to the public, and the public addressed me with this challenge that the fraudsters circumvent them, and they send a message to the government, so the government, the state, protects them. And it's a normal mechanism for the state to protect its citizens, whether in the battlefield with the arms in their hands or in the cyber state. So this is how this legislative initiative emerged in the National Commission. What's the name of this commission? The Committee for the Digital Communication. So de facto, the mechanism for preventing of phishing is already in place. We just have to make sure that it is exercised properly, but upon the resolution it may be amended, which may result in blocking, against which I traditionally act. Well, phishing, I understand. I don't really like it when someone steals my money or my personal details. I understand that there is some logic on part of the government how it should work, why it should work specifically this way, and I think we may ask Mr. Serhiy Prokopenko, who represents the National Cybersecurity Coordination Center Support Department at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, the organization with a complicated name, as I mentioned. So describe the logic. Why is it supposed to work just like that? So, yes, my name is Serhiy Prokopenko. I'm head of the National Cybersecurity Coordination Center at the Support Department at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. So it's the Cybersecurity Coordination Center at the NSDC of Ukraine. And we, in fact, are a national coordinator in the area of cybersecurity. So it's not obvious, but according to the Constitution, the sector of security and defense is being managed by the president, and he has National Security and Defense Council for that. And NSDC comprises this Cybersecurity Coordination Center, which is headed by relevant officials, which include the law enforcement agencies, National Bank, the Central Intelligence Department, and other investigation agencies. We have civil members now is the representatives of Foreign Affairs Ministry and Ministry of Digital Transformation, and the task of the Cybersecurity Coordination Center is to see where we're going on the strategic level and push everybody in that direction. For this purpose, we have a mechanism for development and implementation of the National Strategy of Cybersecurity of Ukraine. It is in place, it is approved by the order of the President, and when some might say that there is no service of national domains in the legislation, so it is stipulated in the order of the President as a priority task within the framework of that strategy. That's on a global level. On the practical level, our task is to monitor the cyber threats and communicating the information about them to the top level government officials. We are being assisted by the departments. They all can bring some significant problem, bring up some issues during the meeting of the Cybersecurity Coordination Center. It will be discussed and the resolution will be worked out, which will be exercised in a coordinated manner further on. In the middle of the last year, we started having this situation. We had a lot of internally displaced people. The programs for support of the citizens who left abroad or were internally displaced persons started being implemented, and unfortunately the situation was actively used by the perpetrators. For example, when the Ministry of Digital Transformation, the government through DIA application organizes the payments, and then in a week there is 1 million of phishing resources, the phishing websites that fully imitate, fully mimic the government portals, and there they say add your personal details, add your bank card details, and you will receive money. And sometimes people are being asked for a fee to receive a bigger amount. In other cases, the card details are being stolen and the money is being cashed. And this is exactly why we were addressed by the National Bank of Ukraine, because they are in fact the first who sees that, because the customers of the banks are the citizens who go to the banks as soon as they lose money, and they've seen that barrage of cases, and we considered a number of solutions, and within the framework of already initiated and built system, the National DNS Service, which was oriented first of all to protect the critical infrastructure facilities and government agencies. So since those topics are interrelated, since the protection of the citizens is the responsibility of the sector of defense and security, the process was initiated. Well, it was considered in a number of the meetings, in a number of sessions of the Cybersecurity Coordination Center, and it was unanimously supported, I mean, this decision. And starting from December 2022, the system for filtration of phishing domains started operating in test mode, and I have to stress that the providers, the carriers, they are interested in it because, first of all, they protect their customers on one hand, and even Kyivstar positioned it as an advantage. We take care about our customers, we make additional steps to protect them. Well, you know, you're talking, Mr. Alexander, and I still cannot comprehend those. So there is the register being proposed. So because, yeah, right, you say it's a complicated words. It's well, you don't facilitate the understanding, to be honest. Well, there is a landscape. So how do we protect all the citizens in this landscape? We have thousands of internet providers in the country. So you cannot reach agreement with one of them or each and every of them. The one method to do it is to develop a mechanism, a transparent mechanism which will work. So what it looks like, there is a team that gathers those phishing domains. The cybersecurity community is being engaged in this process. The citizens who were subject to the fraud, they submit their applications, like check this or that website. Then we create the final list, and this final list is available in DNS server. Well, it's a more complicated, more complex concept, but there is a DNS server that switches or translates the name of the website to the real IP address to set up the communication. So this list is published in the DNS server, and there is an automatic protocol implemented on the level of DNS services, so every provider can get connected and they can pick up that list for themselves, and they later on they implement those rules for themselves. So in case there is an attempt to reach that domain, the user gets a page with a warning. So in the red background, in the big letters, it will be written, you are about to be subject to fraud, and if you think that this is the non-phishing, this is not a fraud, if it's a right domain, proceed by this link, and the domain will be removed from this list. So who maintains this list? Well, the list is maintained by the technical team, the quick reaction team of the National Bank of Ukraine. So they are the ones who makes the decision. So are they the ones who put the tick there? So okay, this is phishing website and this is not phishing. Yes, basically yes, because there should be someone to take the decision, right? And probably yes, I understand that it may seem that some solution may be considered in a collective manner, you know, to spread the liability, but we understand that the phishing website may live for 1 hour. For example, they launch the campaign, they take their profits. For example, they make 2 million hryvnias per hour and they don't need more. And if there are such mechanisms like, okay, let's write a letter from the National Bank of Ukraine to the National Police of Ukraine, the National Police will forward it to State Security Service, and State Security Service will forward it to the Special Communications Service, so that it will result in zero efficiency. Okay, that's clear. So I understand that there are people who are against this initiative, so let's listen to them. For example, Mykola Khudyntsev, the international member of the Ukrainian Internet Association Board. Well, regarding phishing, for what I know, and I've been on the internet since the first days of its existence, the phishing exists just as long as payments, online payments exist. Since the day when it became possible to pay with your bank card, with your payment card online, or to manage your bank account through using internet, this is when the perpetrators appeared. So are you trying to say that perpetrators are good? No, why do you think I wanted to put it like that? Well, you did not interrupt anyone else. Thank you. Well, I did interrupt. I was trying to find out the details. It just seems to me that if we start with the words that phishing is normal, this is not how you're about to sell the elephant. Well, phishing is obviously a criminal act, just like robbery or any other type of fraud, and so on and so forth. Well, the impression could appear that phishing is something new, and suddenly there is a necessity to fight it. But it's not something new. And Ukrainian police, including cyber police, first of all, fights this criminal act for more than a decade. And I want to thank Mr. Fedienko for advertising the website of my company, Ukrinform. Thank you. And with all due respect and appreciation, I want to advertise the website of the National Police of Ukraine, npu.gov.ua. Please enter it on your smartphones. This domain is the website of the National Police of Ukraine. And right there on the main page, the message number 3 there, the third message, as of yesterday, 18th of May, 15:45, the very same message that Mr. Fedienko has seen on the website of Ukrinform. So I'll take 30 more seconds of your time. So National Police liquidated a wide-scale network where the participants appropriated the money from the accounts of more than 10,000 Ukrainians. To suspend the operation of the network and investigations in the 20 regions of Ukraine, special operation was taking place with the participation of more than 500 servicemen of the National Police. The perpetrators were identified, who were sending phishing emails and messages to obtain the payment card details of the citizens of Ukraine and appropriated about 15 million hryvnias. Well, if anybody is interested in the details, you can read further on. So what I'm trying to say, that the National Police of Ukraine, Cyber Police of Ukraine, fights phishing quite efficiently. Within decades, they counter these cyber fraudsters. And in my opinion, if the National Bank of Ukraine addressed the Cybersecurity Coordination Center of NSDC, it means that my dear colleague, who for what I know was serving in the cyber police before NSDC, no, but there is a deputy in NSDC, what's his name, your director, Davydyuk, who used to be in cyber police, and somehow they did not readdress the esteemed National Bank of Ukraine to the cyber police, because it's their sector, and if there are some desires to improve the efficiency of fighting these phenomena, so maybe you better communicate it to those who deal with it according to the law. Yes, there is a criminal code. There is the criminal code. And I apologize, I will interrupt you. So you're trying to say that this register is not necessary. Is it so or not? Because you're saying that there is a system. I don't understand what register are you talking about. I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give the information to the public in making of their decisions, formulating our positions in regard of these situations. So don't try to guess what I'm trying to say. I'm listening to this third person already, and I need to find out more and more details. Well, let me finish. Let me just finish, and then you will be asking for details. So there is the criminal code, there is cyber police, there is area of their responsibility, and if something goes wrong with the National Bank of Ukraine, they have some desires, please address them with those whose authority it is. You can communicate it within the parliamentary committees or NSDC and so on and so forth. But again, it's up to you what amendments are necessary to be made to the criminal code of Ukraine, to the procedures in part of terms. If there are not enough terms in the criminal code, well, so amend it in terms of procedures if they're not sufficient, but it will be within the legal framework. What we're seeing, it has nothing to do with legality, it has nothing to do with the law. This is the thing fabricated today. It's extra court system for blocking of internet domains, which is disseminated by the servers of NSDC and is mandatory for compliance with by all providers. And the law proposed by three dozens of deputies is about to legalize this, in my opinion, criminal scheme. Well, if you want to improve something, there is criminal code, there is the procedure code, everything is balanced there. There are investigators, there are courts, judges, everything is in place there. And what you're trying to do is you want to have State Service for Special Communications, who has not so good reputation in terms of their management. And in relation of those managers, there are investigations initiated by NABU and other investigation agencies. And last month, in April, there were searches with the management of this organization. So don't give this service more authorities beyond the law to block the internet domains under extra court procedure, because Ukrainians don't like to have their money stolen or anything else stolen. We are resilient people, but we would not tolerate when our dignity and freedom is being stolen from us. Ukrainians are not giving this to you. Your questions? Well, I don't have questions no more, so but just let us document all the logic. So Mr. Oleksandr said there were some resolutions, and those resolutions should be drawn up as legislation. the representative of NSDC told us that there is a register being formed for blocking of the website, and in your opinion, we already have the system in place which fights criminality, and there is no need to create something on top of it, that things function just perfect now. Well, if it's necessary under the criminal law, we can, in case it's necessary, we can improve this system, but not to pick an authority to pull the trigger on Ukrainian internet. This is what I was trying to say. I want to add, so the spectators understand, as there are different laws, they regulate different things. For example, the law that regulates the criminal issues cannot regulate the law on the electronic communications which are used by the operators, the carriers. So to make this story work, we have to amend the order or the law on the telecommunications, or we can amend the criminal code to understand that depending on the sector, there are some laws that regulate procedures and processes in this or that sector. And as a person who brought one of the first companies, internet companies in Ukraine back in 1993, the problem is, you mentioned it right, we have many internally displaced persons, and the age category, it grows, and further on, those people, they use the digital mechanisms to use banking services or other digital services. Yes, there is a category of people who understand how internet works, how the digital skills and cybersecurity, cyber hygiene, cyber awareness works. But when I see regular people, average citizens of Ukraine, they don't know what it is like to visit the Ukrainian National Police website physically. First of all, they don't know, and second, the telephone. But at that same time, the government gave her, the state gave her the payment cards, so they receive pension on their payment cards. Maybe they imposed it, but again, NSDC just protects the citizens of Ukraine in this way. Okay, we've heard your ideas. We have three different agencies that are about to work with this problem: National Police, NSDC, National Bank, and the providers actually who face those challenges. Well, of course, I am quite far away from internet, so let's follow this logic, like Special Communications Services, National Police, and NSDC. Okay, let's proceed to you. The floor is yours. Thank you. First of all, can you please introduce yourself? Ivan Pukhov, President of the Adamant LLC, a member of Ukrainian Internet Association. What I want to say, how this system works. So there is a server. The server is installed with the national agency, National Cybersecurity Center, and there are providers who are obliged beyond the law to get connected to this server, to connect their servers, which either provide access to the website or they forward you in a different direction. Is it the extra cord blocking? It is blocking. That's very clear. So who makes the decision? Is there a feedback? Yes, please submit letters to us and we'll see whether the website was blocked lawfully or not lawfully, like Google was blocked. For example, 2 years ago it was happening in aggressor country with whom we fight defending our country. Then what are the principles are being built upon? Upon the principles of the aggressor country again. So the parliament condemned Russianism. It's a component of those ideologies. So that ideology is that back in July 21, I have a copy of the order of Roskomnadzor. So they made a resolution to have Central Bank of Moscovia to block the websites in the same way that it's being done now. So are we going to Europe, where it is done by the public organization who cooperates with the providers, or do we copy the aggressor we fight with? Do we mimic them? So it's another point. So just like Mr. Oleksandr said, I can read you the reasons. Russian Federation. Mr. Oleksandr, I did not interrupt you. Well, I'm talking to you respectively, and Russism, you're using obscene lexics. Russism is a word recognized by Verkhovna Rada, and there are norms of Russism. So in the same way, the sense is to protect our citizens that don't ask to be protected, and only non-democratic societies work like that. There is a technological aspect that the websites are being blocked beyond the court resolutions, and we forward those authorities to the central bank, just like the aggressor does. So there are two components: technological component and another component, maybe emotional one, because what we shed our blood for, what we fight for, we block the DDoS attacks in the internet front. So there is a nuance. Thank you. I want to reflect, because there is a manipulation, and I react quite toxically to any manipulation. Technological progress is the same, not dependent of the country. France, Russia, Belarus, England, Ukraine. Internet is the same everywhere. We work according to the same protocols. It cannot work under one protocol in Russia and under a different protocol in Ukraine. So any technical mechanisms that are being implemented in the networks, they cannot be different. For example, if you are a person who spent a lot of time in the internet, so talk like this, don't manipulate with the political issues. I can give you another example. When a military comes to me and asks why his mother was stolen money, meanwhile he was defending the country in the front lines, and why his mother was not protected against that there. It's no manipulation. Well, I'm having a question. Dear friends, please don't go too deeply into fighting each other, because at this level you know a part of information packages is being lost, just like in case of Putin. I'm just losing the essence of our conversation. So your logic, I understand it. Special Communication Services, National Police. If you want to add something, you may add it later. If we can later on listen to the community. For example, Mr. Vitaly just joined us, and then we will be wrapping up. So Volodymyr Kondrashov, spokesperson of the State Service for Special Communications and Information Protection. It's a yes, it's a different legal entity in the structure of Special Communications Service. But I would like to draw your attention to a different thing. 9,522,323 phishing attacks were blocked last year. It's a small number, but is the number of which was registered by the protected system of the access to the internet, is the system which submits to the Center for Cybersecurity, State Center for Cybersecurity, which services 200 government agencies and organizations. So more than 9 million phishing attacks only against government organizations. So like Mr. Oleksandr mentioned, it's not only about stealing the financial details, but also personal details which can be reached by Russian hackers. So conditionally attack on the Nabu was hardly based on the purposes of picking the financial details from the employees of Nabu. And another thing, the fact that phishing exists for a long time doesn't mean that it shouldn't be fought against. The cancer exists for a long time too, but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be treated. And regarding this necessity that emerged recently, it's real. Starting from the 14th of January 2022, we are in the first cyber war with Russia, and the number of critical incidents grew almost 3 times. The number of cyber attacks grew almost 3 times within the last year. You know, we have all the statistics in the published openly. The most of the hackers are Russian military, who directly or indirectly attack our infrastructure. And today we document in our last report, so you can read it, we document the increase of the attacks aimed at stealing of personal details of the citizens in any way available. And phishing, by its popularity, is the second, so to say, category of the cyber attacks that we document today. So phishing is a problem and it should be fought with. Another aspect, Mr. Prokopenko mentioned that a website can live for 1 day or for 1 hour, and within that hour the fraudsters may receive some financial benefit or other type of benefit. And we are proposed to write letters to national police, so when we see there is a violation of rights of our citizens, that our citizens may be affected, what we're proposed to is to have 2 weeks or 2 to have the case opened, you know, for blocking of that website. I think that there is some lobbyism on part of those who are involved in phishing. I don't want to offend anybody again. But another important moment, we were saying that internet is a tool of dignity and freedom. But a couple of years ago, while being a journalist of one of Ukrainian editorials, I was moderating a conference in one business center dedicated to a number of draft laws, SORM, so-called Ukrainian SORM. There was the hall was chock full of providers, and I asked the audience, are you against locating of special devices on your networks? It was about one of the draft laws which was proposing to put special technical devices on the networks of the internet providers. So are you against? Okay, and if the government pays for installation of those devices? No, nobody voted against it. So again, there are times when you want to do something, there are times when you don't want to do something, but again, the war is going on in the physical front, in the kinetic front. There is a coordination of cyber attacks and the conventional war and information warfare, psychological operations. So let's work all together to make sure that we don't lose our resilience in this cyber war. Meanwhile, what we're doing is, it seems like there is a miscommunication between the public, unfortunately, and the attempts to do something useful for our protection. Thank you. So cyber police, and maybe some more details. We've heard some numbers, but what are the trends, what are the tendencies? Is the number of cases of phishing growing? Because based on my experience, I can say that the Facebook, I could not open Facebook because there was a lot of advertising, a lot of phishing, like proceed to our website and check how to get a consultation, how to get an additional payments. So people invested a lot of money to make more money through phishing. So is the number of phishing cases growing? Is it decreasing? And what should be the system to fight it? Because the industry says that it's bad. If it is bad, how to make it good? To make sure that the number of phishing cases false. Good afternoon, dear spectators, dear audience. I agree with the idea of Mr. Oleksandr that this filtration should be legalized, legally regulated, but in any case, what we observe, there is a tendency of growth of phishing attacks, and not only in relation of the average citizens who are affected in a financial, who are affected financially, and but it's also our government agencies, government organizations which are affected by those attacks. The intelligence of our aggressor, they obtain personal details from the employees of the government organizations, which results again in more threats to our national security. For example, the Department of the Cybersecurity is taking care of our citizens because we received 15,000 applications, 15,000 complaints from 15,000 people who were affected by phishing attacks. So during war in the country, what we observe is that unfortunately the citizens of Ukraine commit crimes against foreign citizens who support Ukraine financially, who support Ukraine with the weapons, and it affects the image of Ukraine abroad. So my opinion, it may be subjective, but I think that filtration should be in place. It should be most efficient within the shortest period possible, because we cannot wait until the criminal investigation is being initiated, when the judgment is being issued to block the internet resource, and we cannot wait until the provider blocks this or that internet resource based upon the court judgment. Well, but is there any protection against abuse? It's the question that is being asked by your opponents. Well, just like my colleague said, in my opinion, it's not blocking, it's about filtration. So it's filtration of those internet resources who are being considered phishing resources. So what I can say that, for example, our foreign colleagues, well, I will digress a little bit from phishing, but talking about the sexual exploitation of children in Europe, Interpol creates the database of web resources which covers the sexual exploitation of children. They disseminate it against the internet providers, and the providers, they block those resources within the shortest time possible. I had an experience of coordination with our providers. We were disseminating the same information to them, and the blocking is happening is not quite promptly. So the mechanism for filtration of phishing sites, in my opinion, it's efficient. Mr. Van, do you have anything to add? Yes, sure, thank you. Look, it all depends on the philosophy and the concept, what we're building. If we're building a totalitarian society, then tell us who wants to build it, and we will use all those ways. I can even tell you, for example, in year 21, Roskomnadzor increased the number of pirate resources blocked up to 59,000. Roskomnadzor blocked the website which was selling the counterfeit certificates, the blocking of Google in Russia, blocking of VPN in Russia, and so on and so forth. And it's only in year 21. Well, their citizens are protected. If you want to become a cannon fodder, become a cannon fodder. But if we build a civilized society, and there are weights and balances working in this state, so there are mechanisms, let's study the mechanisms, the way they do it in Europe. But in Europe, what I understand, they use regulation. Let me finish. They go along the path of regulation, yeah, but not blocking. And we're not talking about any totalitarianism here. For example, the European countries, for what I understand, a couple of years ago, they realized that they have to manually, so to say, regulate that market. I understand that in fact we don't have what the industry is afraid of. They are afraid of the policeman state. This is exactly what's happening here. We are working into the direction of the police state. Again, technologically, I can describe it to you step by step that it's not filtration, it's blocking. Because recursive DNS server, which is being installed, it asks for routing of the caller of the user to this or that website, and if it is banned, so no one accepts the risks and proceeds. So plugins exist for this. Why are we considering only the red button? Why don't we consider the services? You enter Google and it tells you this is a phishing website. For example, I don't undertake the risk in that case, because in Mozilla, for example, in Firefox, there is such a definition. The majority of those tables that were provided, I was checking the tables that were sent to us by NCU, and Firefox reported that it's a fraudulent website. There are plugins. Well, I may have missed a couple percent there, maybe not all hundreds of them, but the majority of them. So here we're talking about other ways to solve this problem. People may live in a normal prison, just keep them fed, give them something, and they will be protected there. This is how I was told by one of the representatives of the State Security Service back in the 90s. So let's submit all of our phone numbers to the police, to the SBUs, and then we will have all of our information, all of our talks recorded. Back in year 96, they wanted to register where our citizens go, what they watch, what they read, and we want to know why they went that way. So we have to let our society choose. We have to give them choice, the right of choice. So this system, it's about choice. Maybe I was emotional in my first address, but we put ourselves on par with the country that we fight. Is the fight of the opinions, is the fight of ideologies, like Mr. Oleksandr said. Ukraine has seen internet back in year 91 in his company, and he started to enlighten people how to get protected from that. Obviously it's not so. It all exists so that we could discuss it with you. The government, public, and the business, it should always exist. Don't take someone's right from someone. I never asked to be protected as a citizen. I can protect myself. But if there are categories who want to be protected, so please, there are mechanisms that allow you to do so. There is the experience of developed countries, but we copy the worst experience. Let's copy China, who have cameras everywhere. There are whole cities with the cameras, and you get those social points. Like one of the colleagues of Mr. Oleksandr was saying, why do we need the spoiled children? We can come to something different. Here we need to ponder over what we want to build in Ukraine. Well, Mr. Ivan, I'm on your side. You know, as a citizen, I'm afraid of the state. I don't like it when the state tries to solve something for me. But on the other hand, for me as a communication person, when you put responsibility for phishing on the citizens, this is not how you're about to sell the elephant. Okay, once again, you've misheard it. I've said that there are other services, other options that allow you to do this. Provider, just like in Europe, they can enter into agreement with a public organization who do so. It's a different mechanism. So this mechanism is something that differs the civilized society, free democratic society, from a totalitarian society where national bank regulates it all. One person makes the decision. Yeah, well, it sounds different for a person from whose money was stolen. Well, it was about the phishing of the government organizations. Well, the amounts are calculated in millions. And I want to add a couple of words in paradigm of thinking. All those people who are present here are the people who were growing up with internet. So what I want to say, unfortunately, not such a big number of people, they wield the digital skills, like Mr. Pukhov said. It's a very good citizen's position. The government implements training programs in the schools, but when you talk about a person who is 60 or 70 or 80 years old, you cannot pull them into the classroom. Please don't interrupt me, because I did not interrupt you. And again, your line where you're saying that it's blocking, and I've checked a couple of phishing websites, so that there is the warning page, and then I proceed. So there is a Latvian website where they propose the same story, and it exists in many countries of the world, when the government voluntarily offers the citizens of Ukraine to use that service. And Ukraine is the only country in the world which has such a number of internet providers who provide access to internet. And to avoid blocking and to make it only a filtration, so those legislative amendments are necessary, because if we remain in the paradigm of resolution, that resolution legally will say that let's ban the access or restrict the access, and then it will result in blocking. Well, I understand the industry. Based on my empiric experience, when government was trying to regulate something, it never ended well. For what I understand, this is Mr. Mykola Khudyntsev from National University of Cybersecurity. So, on a level of mediator or arbiter, the trier of positions, I can tell you with full confidence that I was belonging to both sides of today's discussion, because I was working for a long time. I was working 4 years in this special communications service. And what I can say, let's try to bring up this issue or talk about it in short questions and answers. Are there reasons to afraid that this mechanism will be spoiled and forwarded against the used against the society? Yes, there are such threats. Will it be done? Well, maybe yes, maybe so, maybe not. Will it increase the degree of trust to the government after implementation of this service? Maybe with somebody whose money was stolen, maybe yes, and for a person whose money was never stolen, they would say on contrary, yes, really, when this problem touched you, the solution will work for you. But again, it's the matter of the point of no return, point of trust. We don't want to fall into dictatorship, or I apologize, into a Russian model, or we remain on the side of the good, and we remain the free and democratic society. Is the matter of our mentality and our view of the world. And it's a very important question, because there is no answer to that. But for me personally, did my attitude, did my trust improve to the government, to the people who represent them? Yes, because those people change in Ukraine, first of all, and secondly, those people, well, every new cadence, every new generation of politicians, they try to communicate with the society in a language which the society understands better. Do we need triggers by that internet society? Obviously they are necessary. Do we need journalists who cover everybody in mud? Yes, they are necessary, because when the government starts fighting the free thinkers, the first ones to be affected will be those persons specifically. This is not something that we can allow. And if we say that this mechanism is underperforming, well, the changes should be implemented. Yeah, definitely. But will anything change in case the law is adopted? Well, and for what I understand, well, it's not a matter of whether it will be a law or a resolution. It's about whether this mechanism would be implemented. I did not study that matter. I trust the opinion of the experts. Maybe it's not an optimal resolution which was taken, not optimal decision. Maybe it's a prompt but not optimal, but I think that it can exist. And if we study this in the landscape of questions and answers, I cannot give you the direct answer whether it should be done. I'm not a representative of the public, but just as a citizen, I cannot answer this question. Well, it's not that you've helped a lot. Well, you just said that it's still unknown, so maybe Mr. Vitaly may help us. So what can be the solution? Thank you for this invitation. I'm a scientist generally, but my scientific background is almost 13 years, and that my technical background in the internet is about 30 years. I've come here with the metro. I was delayed in Teatralna station because there were first medical aid training going on there. This is something that every Ukrainian should know and know how to do, specifically during this time when war is going on. So I've come today to hear the report by my trainee. He was related to the development of this system, Mr. Andriy Davydyuk. Well, he is online listening to us attentively all this time. So I would like to listen to him first and then to express my thoughts later. Mr. Andriy, if you're online with us, Mr. Andriy, he's not from NABU. It's a different agency. Mr. Andriy, we know that you have something to say. Good afternoon. I'm happy to see everybody. Am I heard well? Well, we can hear you clear and loud, and even we can see you. Thank you. So this discussion, there are arguments in favor of what exists now, because currently Ukraine is under conditions of increased risk, but again there is a matter of implementation still. So we try to improve a cyber hygiene for a long time. I know that there are measures implemented by Chamber of Trade and Commerce and the part. I know about the activities of Special Communication Service. They implement the cyber hygiene measures. They establish seminars in the educational institutions. They tell about those problems to the students. I know about the information activities of National Security Council and National Cybersecurity Coordination Center that are being published on a regular basis. I know about the work of the National Bank of Ukraine, and in my opinion, not all of the population is interested in having, or they don't understand in full, the necessity of the cyber hygiene. Specifically the people of the older age, not all of them use quite intensively internet or use it to the full extent, or not all of them even use smartphones, because we see that in Ukraine the situation is quite different in that regard. And in my opinion, we need to work on having practical reflection of this cyber hygiene. We have to give our citizens the tools which would support them in taking their decisions related to using of different internet resources, both websites and email addresses, because we know that there is a number of methods of phishing. It may be an electronic mail, it may be a message to a messenger, it may be a fraudulent website or otherwise. And in my opinion, our users today, they have a lot of devices that they may use to take the decision whether they need to use this or that internet resource or not. To facilitate your understanding, my opinion is that blocking, I think, is not quite a way of a democratic society. And this situation, in my opinion, should look like a traffic light. When we see it on the road, no matter it's a red light on, so we are being warned, but some might stand and wait, some might see that there are no vehicles coming and run across, and some may think that it's a yellow light and to avoid risks we better wait. So what was said today, that there is already a tool that people could use, like plugins and others, but we have quite, well, going to the technical level, we have many people with different devices, with different operation systems installed, and they have certain habits of using something. Someone uses computer more frequently, someone uses smartphone more frequently. Not every smartphone has that browser with a working plugin, or that plugin may not, or that plugin may collect some other details from the persons, thus creating additional insecurity. So the matter of security for the people, even using different devices, is the trust to this. So trust is first, and second, not all of the solutions are free for use, and many people, they just don't realize, or they don't have many opportunities to pay for paid software which can protect them. For example, buying a license or buying a software that could help them is something not affordable, and in this case we may talk about the infrastructural solutions. I see it in the following way. For example, the government could develop a solution and they could say, okay, this solution is free for our citizens. Its purpose is not to collect personal details or some other details. It's created for voluntary use, so you may or may not use it if you want it, and it's aimed at spreading the hygienic culture of use of the cyberspace and provision of more options for making solutions. For example, if you come across a fraudulent resource, you can report it through the soft UA form of special communication services, or report it to the cyber police. But people have very little motivation to do so, because you have to fill some form, you don't get a feedback right away, and on top of that, not all of the people know what and whom to report, so we cannot say about any efficiency of this process relying on the people's consciousness. For example, today chatbots are very popular. Everybody has messengers installed, and I think everybody present here use chatbots. So in the chatbot you could just create a chatbot. You can copy a link where you're about to proceed. For example, there is a lot of advertising in Facebook and other social networks. So you copy the link, you enter it into a chatbot, and you get a set of information that allows you to make a decision whether to proceed to that web resource or not. So you don't get information like, no, don't proceed. It just may say that it has an indicators of a fraudulent resource. So the website is not blocked, but people are being tipped that there is some threat and they should consider it. So it would raise the level of awareness of people in terms of their cyber hygiene. It's not like they've read or heard something somewhere, but it's a practical thing which is installed in their smartphone, and people get used to such instrument as a chatbot. There is nothing surprising about that or nothing unusual about that, and it's not something that requires some additional software installation that people can have doubts about. So that's one option. Or for those who don't use messengers, of course there is such a category of people. There are people who trust more to the installed mobile application, so it may be implemented as a mobile application and people may use that mobile application as well. It's also possible to develop our own plugin for internet browsers. I think it could be good too. And the websites for those who do not want to install the plugins, just give them the website with the relevant form where people can load some links or some information about the web resources and immediately receive some feedback with some recommendations. So the first thing that it will give you a freedom of choice. Everybody picks something that's more convenient for them. It wouldn't impose anything on people. It would not restrict their choice. It would be voluntary. So for those who are concerned, those who want to protect themselves, they get it. It should be absolutely free to make sure that everybody has capability to do it, everybody can afford it, and it should have the joint core, the joint kernel to check those resources. And in this way, I think it may improve, first of all, our processes, our cyber hygiene, and it may become a practical side to the cyber hygiene, because today, unfortunately, it has more theoretic nature. It's briefings, conversations, conferences, and they do not cover major fraction of the society. And some practical tools, someone may be concerned about the elderly parents, so they may install that software in their phones and it will facilitate the communication, because I don't know whether anybody was facing cases like that when one of the parents, they receive a text message with some link and they call their children asking whether they should proceed by that link. I think it's a very frequent situation. It happened to my friends. So the parents ask from their kids whether they should proceed to the link. What should they do? So in my opinion, we have to create a digital support of our people and remain democratic. Mr. Andriy is not hearing us. Mr. Andriy, sorry, we're limited on time. I understand that we have to end within the next 5 to 10 minutes. So you're drawing quite an idealistic picture, and the good solution would be to just remove internet. So Mr. Vitaly, I haven't heard any words about removing internet in the words of Mr. Andriy. I just started with the course of the training, the first medical aid training. This is something that is happening in all the subway stations. Sometimes people are even afraid of thinking about things like those. And the same is with cyber hygiene. It's the most important part of the cyber protection. And it starts with the small kids from the very beginning. You say that the government finds it hard to reach out to the elderly people, but the government the government never even tried to do so. For example, what we see on the TV, just subscribe to the Telegram channel Svidok, but it's better to advertise a Telegram channel where they are trained to do this, exercise the cyber hygiene. We have gaps in cyber hygiene. It should be special communication service who should be responsible for this. If they develop such system, if they install it, if they make open access to their service, all those links, the compromising identifiers, they are being collected by the agencies, by the automatic systems. They are being added to the databases which functions. So if it will be it will have open access, it will be voluntary. The people on their level, on their personal level, and the owners in their the owners of the telecommunication systems in their level, they will decide whether to use this system or not. But again, it's the support of cyber hygiene and education. This is what's more important, and it's top priority. Well, I think that this is how we're about to wrap up. Oh, obviously, yes, a remark. Well, the statistics, so everybody understands what we're talking about. We're talking about 400 million hryvnias within the last year only, and obviously that money, they were stolen by the perpetrators, majority of whom are Russians. So in fact, about 5 million hryvnias, the Ukrainians financed the rockets falling on their heads. It's about the statistics. It's then about the hygiene. Everybody deals with the hygiene, but in the traffic rules we have some mandatory things like fastening of the seat belts, but from the point of view of the hygiene, everybody still understands it. But there should be something emphasized in Ukraine with our mentality. We communicate a lot with other countries where the same solutions are being implemented. And for example, in the Northern Europe, they don't have this approach like we have. Let's leave it all to the citizen for them to be educated by themselves, starting from the cybersecurity all the way to the legislation, so they can protect themselves. But they have a principle of collective responsibility and collective security, because they understand that if, like we're sitting here, 5 or 7 of us, if anybody does something wrong, the defense is broken and it makes no sense working further on. So it seems to me that we should go to the Europe and not to appeal to the manipulative messages, and we should consider the solutions they implement there, because we're on the peak of cyber warfare. Our partners, our Western partners, come to us and they ask how you're doing it, help us protect our countries. Well, remark to the remark. Well, sounds very literature-like. Well, look, what is proposed by this draft law? The right to blocking should be delegated to the executive authority. So the constitutional rights is being delegated to executive power. So the Cabinet of Ministers decides it. So this is not the way we can build a democratic country, but rather something mimicking the aggressor. So our guys, they die there not for the resources, not for the land, they die for their homeland, for the principles, for the values. This is what we have to remember about. If you want to ask those who are in the battlefield, are they ready to give away their rights and freedoms for the government to decide for them, and only then let's make that decision. So the problem of phishing and the games, the casino games, they are very important for the people in the trenches because they are being paid good money, and they are being targeted by those phishing fraudsters. Well, by the way, we had a question on the floor, and may I give another remark to that remark that was said. First of all, there is no such thing in the draft law. It's lies. And again, as a person who works in the national, in the Parliamentary Committee for Defense and Security, and I communicate with the military, so again, it says that it should be put in a legislative terms by the Cabinet of Ministers, and I would like to ask Mr. Andriy, for what I understand, he listens to us, I think he's hearing us. Mr. Andriy, did you study as a trainee, did you have any sociology in percentage, the age difference? When I was working in the special communications service, so the age breakdown of the people who use more stationary devices or mobile devices, those who use more browsers, like by category, to understand, well, you said in the beginning, you were saying it right in my opinion, as to the people who have different skills, of different sets of skills, and with age they don't improve, and some just don't want to have those skills. They may have some narratives like, you are a state, so you are about to protect me. So did you have any research to find out so that your evaluation during your study is more objective and not being influenced by other stakeholders? Well, I would like to start from a different side. Just let us know whether you had a study like this. Please be as concise as possible because we're limited in time. Well, the answer to your question is related with the use of the VPN services. Many organizations, they had this study for me. Please just tell us simply. Well, VPN, the people who watch us, when you go to Borispol and you ask what is VPN, 70% of people would not know what it is. It's just here the people are present who understand what is DNS, what is VPN, and so on and so forth. Over there, people don't know it. Just say, yes, I made this study, I have this statistic data, and give us some percentage. If you never performed this study, tell us no. So it's an open sociology, why he should study it. Well, if I may say, please. So you asked me, your key question was the objectivity. So to be objective, I would like to say that it's an open information in the internet. There is a research by many organizations regarding the use of the VPN, because there is a difference in content in Ukrainian content and Russian content. And when Russian websites were blocked, we all know why they were blocked. People started using VPNs, and even those who did not have smartphones or who were not using internet quite actively, they started using it more actively because they need content, they need information, they need access to the information that they lost access to. So talking about percentage, for the time being, about 80% of Ukrainians still use both internet and information technologies to access the content. It's not my subjective study as to the statistics or anything else. It's the data available in many internet resources. You can check them, but why I mentioned VPN, it's very easy to find it by the hashtag, the growth of use of the VPN services in other countries, not only in Ukraine. And in view of that, I can state that many people, if we talk about a number of more than 80% of Ukrainians who are the users of the digital technologies, so they use internet in their smartphones and their personal computers. Have I answered your question? Well, you have not, but I will not be repeating myself anyway. So let's proceed to the questions from the floor. Good afternoon, Ukrinform. The question, maybe someone may answer it. What the citizens should do if they become victims of phishing of their personal details, the regular people who watch us now, so they have very superficial questions, you know. Well, I would recommend to proceed to the website of the Cyber Police. There is a feedback form, you fill it, and the Department of Cyber Police will react to such complaints, and there is the liability for spreading personal details. So one more questions and we will be wrapping up. Katerina, Hromadske Volunteer Channel. I would ask the panelists, if a website gets mistakenly blocked, how it will be solved then? If it will be a not court procedure, how it can be solved? What are the risks? What, for example, in case of business, it's about funding, and who can compensate the losses if a website is not working for a month or more, meanwhile the issue is being solved? Thank you. Well, look, if you proceed to a phishing resource, you will see the address where you can submit an application and to state that it's not phishing. So technologically, up to 15 seconds your application is 15 minutes your application is being considered, and the website becomes available for everybody in all the provider networks. We have an experience, for example, there were 3 cases like that when we had domains registered which were looking very much like phishing domains. They were added to the list by a number of parameters, and then the owners of the website, well, they addressed us that we've just got the website registered. So after 15 minutes they were released. It creates no additional risks, no big risks from point of view of practical application, and even some colossal losses that are being discussed. What we're talking about, if you block our internet shop, we will contest it in the courts for years and years to come. No, it's a matter of a half an hour. Yeah, this is how it's described in the regulation. Yeah, if I'm allowed in detail, for example, it happens so that the website that has no relation to phishing ends up on the list. Censor.net. I would like to continue. You said that it's very easy. You open a page, you get the phishing message, that it's easy to proceed to the unblocking form. But what is the guarantee that this message of unblocking will be considered within the term stipulated by the law, and the measures will be taken to unblock? Because now we're in a situation, you know, you look at the page, some link might not be working there, someone may react or may not. Well, just sit and wait, and just in the case of a tax administration, we block you, and then you have to prove in the court that you were blocked illegally. Well, look how internet works. The regulations are built on the same principles that our esteemed colleagues work who represent the telecom community. Well, I apologize. So we're talking about the abuse mechanism. It's worked out, it's developed in the internet, and all the registrators, all the basic things, all the services, they have the abuse form. And you may be I'm convinced that you were using them at least once in Facebook. You've seen something on Facebook. You have the abuse form to report that you've seen some child porn, for example. You want to have it banned. And this mechanism is not being regulated elsewhere by the court resolutions, because in the internet everything is quite quick. In the policies, there is a policy to be adhered to. In this policy, we use the regulation where everything is described. Your application is being considered and you get a response. Why? There are sometimes situations when the system started working, the phishers started writing to us, it's not phishing, and we say, okay, prove it. Why is the data collected here? Why are they forwarded to a website which does not belong to, let's say, Privatbank, and you pose it as a page of Privatbank? Or why Ministry of Digital Transformation collects the details and they are not forwarded to a government website? So all those cases that I'm talking about, they were worked upon within half an hour. To understand it, in reality, we have 3 cases, more than 3 months the system is working. We were in communication with our colleagues in Poland, and their false positive, the amount of the false positive filterings that had to be cancelled amounts to 3%. In our cases, this percentage is just within the statistic error. But just in our protection, I can say that if the industry realizes clearly the guarantees of protection against this punishing sort of the government, it would be way easier for you to do it on the level of your initiative. Because the question is quite fair, it's just, well, you can come to us and get yourself familiarized. For example, in the Facebook, there are instruments, there are tools to complain against complaint. But okay, tell me, for example, the Russian hackers broke your system. What should we do in that case? It's impossible, because those manipulations about, so to say, transitory servers, they are not real from the technological point of view, because the system, the DNS, it's near the channel of your exchange, and even if anything is switched off, if there is a cyber attack, this server where the list is located, it will not be updated. The providers will not be getting updates. The new phishing domain will not be registered. That should be filtered. It will be as of that hour of the attack. And to mitigate that risk, we're now finalizing the instruction how to promptly react in case of emergency. It will be disseminated to the providers, and those providers who got connected, and it's more than 400 of them. This procedure of disconnection is the same as connection. You have to just change 2 or 5 lines in a file. It takes you 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Well, and another question that matters. We have a very important structure, cyber police. So you said that it works efficiently, they have some success. And instead of improving this structure, there is something new being created which is not regulated, without legal guarantees. We just have to believe that someone will respond to us and everything will be fine. But what if not? And another question. You want to have this internet switch. That's clear. I can understand it. Well, it's a manipulative statement. There is no switch of the internet, so you want to control the user. No, we don't want to control the user. And if you remember, one of the key functions of the national police is prevention of crimes. Not the investigation, but prevention. And this is exactly what is being solved by this system. The citizens are not being subject to the activities of perpetrators. Investigation of cyber crimes is costly, difficult, and takes a long time. And this system reduces the load on the police, in fact, and it enables them to more effectively find those groups. And the results that we publish, that police efficiently detains big teams, big groups of perpetrators. So imagine we get 1,000 applications from the citizens every day, so investigate every case. Well, okay, but why cannot we increase the responsibility of the providers? Okay, so now you're going against providers. We don't want to do this. It's not for this system to force the providers to do something that they cannot do. They don't consider, they don't react to the addition of another phishing website filter. One of the speakers, I don't remember who exactly, was saying that, I think from cyber police, that the application to add a phisher to a filter is sometimes exercised by the provider, sometimes is not. So wouldn't it be a solution to increase the threshold of responsibility of the providers to expedite their reaction to addition of the phishing website to the list within? Well, it's a non-democratic state position. Well, so otherwise we can deprive you of your license. So we don't exercise any punishing function. And if it's not for martial law now, it could have worked in a little bit different way. In a more, so to say, we could use the tool that I mentioned. For example, a Kyivstar said the providers who take the protection of their customers responsibly, they get connected by themselves. If people just want to make some money on some darker schemes, so this is not how they would have worked. I will add a couple of words. Oh yeah, just go ahead. Well, your question about the providers, you're putting it right. In this draft law there are alternatives also. I'm not commenting on that. There is a straight definition based on the proposals of the National Bank of Ukraine. They have a brief version of the Cabinet of Ministers approves. They approve. It's not a resolution. The resolution of a government organization, it's approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, and it's a protective mechanism. And in those rules, the story is working. You know that I've heard it. You said 400 operators already deal with prevention. I can keep talking on and on about that, but well, the prevention of phishing. And if we not develop the rules which would be approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, coordinated with the public, so something that you say about it may emerge. But I will add from myself that unfortunately there are cases when the money is being stolen by the third party and the providers are being brought to responsibility, because citizens sometimes think that is them who should protect them, but the law on telecommunications strictly defines who does what, and under the martial law there are certain restrictions again. But at that very same moment, the internet provider is not supposed, or mobile carriers are not supposed to protect the citizens, because they just provide access to the internet resources. And what Mr. Serhiy said, that the citizens will be choosing the carrier who protects them, and the carrier which probably helps the fraudsters, the perpetrators who work with phishing. Thank you. That's it for me. Okay, then Mr. Mikhailo, and we wrap it up. Thank you. As a representative of association, I was touched by the position of Mr. Serhiy that this mechanism is implemented to facilitate the life of the cyber police. It's a very touching way of care to facilitate the life of cyber police. Right. We need the special communication services to be provided the mechanism of extra court blocking. Maybe give it to cyber police so they can react more promptly. The mechanisms, the budget, increase their budget so that all this struggle with phishing and other types of fraud, so it all happens within the law in effect, the criminal law, and the special communication services needs to be provided this option, this mechanism for extra court blocking, and then we'll see what happens. So it's a very touching way of care about the military, someone who was subject to fraud, someone who was circumvented. For me to believe in this care, please tell me, when you, in your publications, in the media, when you find out that the Ministry of Defense procures eggs at 17 hryvnias per item, have you submitted the request to the Ministry of Defense? Because you care so much about the citizens, so that the citizens' money is not being embezzled. So please, on this note, on this happy note, let's wrap it up. The one thing that I've understood, that we have to intervene and keep talking. I was asking you, well, Mr. People's Deputy Fedienko, I'm forced to answer this question quite quickly. Yes, I've submitted the request. Please follow them. If you want to follow them, please address me directly. I have a proposal. If we want to continue talking, we can gather once again, because it seems like we have a crisis of under communication between you. So on this note, we have to wrap it up, and I wish everybody have a great and safe weekend. See you.